Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm Emmanuel, I'm a Boeing 737 pilot, and in this video I'm going to show you how we pilots typically use the lights in our cockpit. Note that I say typically because there are differences per person and some prefer this, some prefer that. So what I'm about to show you is what the average pilot does. Also note, this is of course based on the experience in my airline's operations, so in other airlines things might be looking different. Right, so let's start and have a seat. Now, at the moment, except for the displays, pretty much all lights are turned down, and I will actually need to use the flashlight in order to even find some of the basic switches. Of course, the configuration we see right now is something that you would never see actively used in real life. So, let's turn some lights on. And we start with the main panel lights and the remainder of the panel lights. And I am initially only going to turn them on a tiny bit, like this. And this would be a basic configuration we would be using when we want to see something outside. Now, that may either be a beautiful starscape, or it may just be some terrain we would like to see on an approach in a remote area that is badly lit. Regardless, this is a configuration we would be using in such situations. Also note the brightness of the display units up here, which currently is rather bright, but getting them down to a proper level is quite hard in the PNDG. Not so in the real aircraft, because the real aircraft actually does have an automatic tuning feature where you just set the switch to the middle position and then the displays are going to be adjusted automatically for the outside brightness that the light sensor sends. Now, typically we'd have them a little bit brighter in cruise, something like this. And the same goes for takeoff and landing as well. So normally we don't change the lights around very much. Now, this is a setting that you may find in use rather often by many pilots. However, a lot of pilots actually like to add a little bit of background lights, and in some cases AFDS floodlight as well. Now personally I'm not a big fan of the AFDS floodlight, but I'm a very big fan of the background light, because it just means the entire flight deck is illuminated a little bit better, and you can just see things a little bit more easily, especially when that darn pen just falls somewhere down on the floor. Now, the floodlight on the pedestal, however, is not usually used that much, and the reason for that is contrary to what we see in the simulator here, where the pedestal is basically pitch black. In real life, the screens cast enough brightness into the back of the flight deck that you can basically see what there is in the back. Now that is something that in Flight Simulator unfortunately does not happen as easily, so in here we'll have to live with this limitation. Now, next up there is the chart light, and personally I prefer to have the chart light on just about bright enough that I can read the checklist on the control column, but I wouldn't really turn it up any brighter, because it can get very, very bright if you turn it up all the way, and that is just going to be blinding. I'm sure all of you know what it is like when you look into the sun and then you have that green spot on your eyes for a couple of minutes, and exactly that would happen if you turn the chart light up too bright. So this is actually a fairly good setting for me. Now, this would be a typical light setting that I would like to use, maybe minus the AFDS lights or something like this. However, pilots do like to use different, and there are a couple of, let's call them special situations, where you would be using different lights. One question that many of you will probably be asking themselves is, so do you not use the dome light then? And the answer is no, not really. And the reason for that is quite simple. If you turn the dome light up, it is going to be so bright that outside of the window all you are going to see is black spots. And it is quite important to be able to look outside, because normally there is enough residual light from either the villages and towns below, or just from the moon, or in some cases even from the sun, that might have set already but still casts a bit of light that reflects from the atmosphere, that you are normally able to see rather well outside. So even at night you can see some clouds coming, which might not be shown on the weather radar. And you can also see traffic easier and so on. However, there is a situation in which we would be using the dome light, and that is typically when cabin crew are about to enter the cockpit. Now, when the cockpit door has to be opened, personally I like to at least switch the dome light to the dim position before, because number one, the cabin crew will not normally dim the lights in the cabin before the door is opened, and number two, when that door is finally opened, the cabin crew has to come in, and their lights are adapted to the brightness level in the cabin, which is normally much brighter than the flight deck. So the cabin crew will have difficulty seeing anything when they come into the cockpit, and the other way around, when passengers are sitting in the cabin and they look to the front, even though the door might only be open for a couple of seconds, if they just see a black hole in front of that door, that is going to upset them. So that is situations in which we would be using the dome light. Now, personally, whenever I'm eating in the cockpit, I like to put the chart light up a little bit brighter, and then you can move it around as well, so that you can make it fit your lap. But that is something that we don't do that often. Now, the only situation in which we would really be using the pedestal floodlight here is when we need to take pictures of documents. So in my airline, a couple of documents that we just don't put into an envelope and send to the company anymore, that however still have to be kept, will just be photographed using the EFB. And for that, the pedestal floodlight is actually quite good. Alright, that concludes a look at the different lights that we have in the cockpit. So once again, this is the typical configuration we would be using in flight. And now it's time for you to let me know what you think. Would you handle the lights any different? Which kind of setup do you prefer? I'm looking forward to read it in the discussion below, and would like to thank you very much for watching. Now, if there is any topic that you would like to see covered, then also let me know in the comments. Finally, if you want to support the channel, you now have the option to become a channel member, in which you can get early access to new videos, and in first class membership even get the ability to request certain videos to your liking. Now, I would like to take this opportunity to thank you very much for watching. Hope that you've enjoyed this one and learned something, and I'm looking forward to see you all again, hopefully very soon.